Now, one aspect of globalization that has been going on essentially since the beginning of human history, but has greatly accelerated in the past 20 or 30 years is cultural syncretism. Um, Cultural blending, like we said, is nothing new. It's a part of migration, it's a part of trade, it's a part of war and conquest. But again, because of the technological advancements that we have on hand, this rate of cultural syncretism is increasing, and it is increasing at a faster rate year by year. The majority of this cultural diffusion happens along, you know, everyday avenues: pop culture, food, religion, sports, language. However, it's not necessarily welcomed everywhere. Western dominated pop culture leads to resentment. It results in xenophobia, fundamentalism, persecution. And again, this is not new. Anytime a new culture or cultural syncretism takes place and the existing culture is modified, there are always people who are going to resist and push back against this. The Ming in China in the 15th century, the United States in the 20th century sought really hard to isolate themselves from their changing role in the global marketplace. The Catholic Counter Reformation in the 16th century, Wahhabism in the 14th century, these were both reactions to religious syncretism. These were reactions to changes in their perceived, uh, what word do I want to use here? Poisoning of their religious beliefs. Even Nazi and fascist ideology in the 20th century can be seen as a pushback against global syncretism. The integration of races and ethnicities in Western Europe in the 20th century, thanks to their large colonial empires, was viewed by the Nazis as, again, kind of poisoning the racial purity of European and German people. And Nazism and fascism was, a form of pushback against that, right? So, like I said, the majority of cultural syncretism and cultural diffusion you see in, pop culture and everyday life. You have things like Benihana and um, Japanese and Asian style cooking in American restaurants, right? You also see popular American chains transplanted into other parts of the world. Religious diffusion is, a major avenue of cultural syncretism, right? Things like Buddhism's growing popularity in the United States, while in China, Christianity is seeing a surge in the recent decades in converts, right? Economically, globalization is pushing cultural syncretism. Um, Western corporations are having to adapt to new markets, new cultural trends, right? Walmart in China does not sell the same thing as the Walmart in your neighborhood. McDonald's in Israel does not serve the same things that McDonald's in your neighborhood does. Subway in India does not serve the same kind of sandwiches as the one in your neighborhood does. Sports are another big avenue where culture diffuses. Um, Global soccer, global basketball, right? All of these things, thanks to satellite communication, cable TV, the internet, have become worldwide phenomena. Now, one thing that you can be sure of is that anytime rapid, massive change occurs, there are people who don't like it and are afraid of it. And pushback against globalization is a massive question that must be addressed in the 21st century. and it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. One way is the anti-technology movement, the organic food movement to combat the spread of GMOs. You have anti-vaxxers who, for some reason, want their children to die. You also have the unplugging movement, where people are seeking to disconnect from the information revolution and from electronic devices. Another another kind of less significant movement, but one that's been very popular lately, is the small house culture. Right? If any of you ever watch any home and garden TV, this is a big trending thing in the United States now. Another way in which people push back against globalization is through the use of terrorism, right? And this has become a more and more readily available and, I don't want to say accepted, but accepted model of political influence. Because of the advent of soft power, because large scale war is no longer seen as feasible, smaller groups have taken advantage of this, and this has led to an increase in violence against civilian populations in order to achieve political, social, religious, racial, ethnic goals, right? Another form of pushback against globalization, which is not quite as violent or dangerous, is what's known as the Green Movement. And the Green Movement is not any one particular movement, it's numerous independent movements, numerous independent organizations who are all working to combat human impact on the environment in one way, shape, or form. An example of this would be the Green Belt movement in Kenya, where the government encourages and funds a program for women to plant trees to slow down the process of deforestation. You have other groups that focus on recycling, sustainable living, protection of rural areas, preserving animal species, groups like Greenpeace and the ASPCA, Earthwatch, World Wildlife Federation. Essentially, their goal is to reduce our imprint, our impact, our restructuring of the natural environment. Now, two of the biggest and most prominent forms of pushback against globalization, and the ones that tend to get all the headlines, are xenophobia and religious fundamentalism. Religious fundamentalism is, again, it's nothing new. You see this anytime there is large scale cultural syncretism within a religion. The Catholic Counter Reformation, Wahhabism, and Islam. These are both movements to return to essentially the fundamentals of the religion. They resist the blending of their religion with foreign ideals or foreign cultural traditions, right? And in order to preserve their religion, they see that a more orthodox, fundamental version of the religion must be followed. And again, this happens across multiple time periods in multiple parts of the world. Usually, it's accompanied by a very strict interpretation of holy texts, very strict interpretation of religious teachings, very strict moral and ethical codes. In a lot of cases, these groups also are able to attain massive political power. You have groups like the religious right in the United States. You have the clerics in the Iranian Revolution that are able to capitalize on religious fundamentalism to influence politics, economic policy, social and cultural change. Now, here's the thing. Many of these groups are very peaceful. Lots of them, most of them are very, very peaceful. However, what unfortunately gets headlines are obviously the violent ones. Some of them become paramilitary and engage in terrorist activities. Some examples of this in the In the Muslim world, would obviously be ISIS, Al Qaeda. In the Christian world, you have the bombings of abortion clinics here in the United States. Um, you also have massacres against the Buddhist population in India as well. So this is not a problem that is restricted to a certain religion or restricted to a certain part of the world. Again, most of these groups attempting to push back against syncretism of their religion are peaceful, but you know, some are violent. That's kind of the story of the entire human history, right? Now, another way in which anti globalization rears its ugly head is through xenophobia. And xenophobia is the intense fear or dislike of people from other countries, other cultures, other ethnicities, often irrationally and often ignorantly. However, it does exist. And again, you see this in anti immigration groups in the West. You see this in anti Western and anti capitalist protests in the global South. You also see this in the form of protests against intergovernmental organizations like the World Bank or the United Nations. In some cases, countries in the global South have formed economic blocs like OPEC, like the African Union, like Mercosur, to try to combat this economic dominance of Western capitalism, but also to combat the cultural and the social fears that come along with xenophobia.